Hey YouTube, this is Kevin Bolin of Bolin's Small Engine, and I'm just continuing off that other video I did in regards to the FS55R. Of course, at this point we're addressing the carburetor, and I wanted to note to you guys that there are basically two reasons as to why these carburetors screw up. Okay, the main reason is it's because of the check valves. Don't get me wrong, there are smaller jets here, such as this fixed jet, okay, that occasionally gets clogged, and you can typically take a bread tie and strip it, push it through, and these will be just fine. Howsoever, you have to remove a Welch plug here in order to get to your check valve. In doing so, you cannot use a bread tie to clean these. The reason being is these check valves have a piece of neoprene embedded in them, and if you try to push through it, which some people do, as you can see, I hope you can see this anyway, this one, someone attempted to push a needle through, and guys, that just doesn't work. Okay, the truth of the matter is, if you're experiencing issues with your carburetor to this degree, it's a hell of a lot cheaper just to buy a new carburetor. The reason being is, by the time you buy your check valve and your carburetor kit, you've exceeded the price of the carburetor. So logistically, it's just cheaper to buy a carburetor. And these carburetors typically range from $27 to roughly about $35. I'm going to go ahead so I can zoom in on this check valve for you guys to have a better look at the neoprene in the center. Okay, now I gotta be honest guys, when you pull the Welch plug out, you're not going to see the neoprene. Okay, you're actually going to see the top of this little valve. It isn't until you push it all the way through and out that you're able to inspect the check valve. And as I say, I'm going to try to zoom in on this, guys. If you look carefully, you can see the neoprene rubber on the inside of this check valve. And as I said, when it swells, there's not a chance in hell that you're going to get your weed eater to run. Okay, I mean, you're basically screwed until you buy a new carburetor or buy a new check valve, as I mentioned, with a carburetor kit. Guys, the second reason that you can have a problem with your weed eater is because of your pump assemblies. Now, your pump assemblies typically look like this. I'll try to put this better in the camera's focus. What happens is, behind this Welch plug there is an additional piece of neoprene. And that neoprene too will swell, and when it does, you will not get the results from the carburetor that you're looking for when you're trying to prime it. And I'm going to zoom out and I'll show you two other carburetors that I have as an example of what I'm talking about. This carburetor looks to be in relatively fairly decent shape, with the exception of a little dirt. But if you listen, you'll see that this carburetor doesn't really want to prime. Whereas this one actually sounds very, very good. And if you'll listen to the sound, you'll see what I'm talking about. So in truth, this carburetor more than likely would probably work or should I say at least the priming aspect of it will work. Like I said, you can still have problems with the check valve, but I gotta be honest, I'd say this carburetor's in pretty good shape. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to show you another primer housing here so you can see the neoprene on the inside. I'm going to zoom in on it, guys. If you look carefully enough, you'll see that there's a little hole here, and it too has neoprene in it. Basically exactly like that check valve did. And when it swells, that's what's preventing you from priming your carburetor and getting gas to pass through it. This also will make a carburetor not run. Now guys, I want to talk a little bit about other issues as well that can make a weed eater not run, especially an FS55 Stihl weed eater. This is the spark arrestor. Now I've zoomed down on it so you guys can see the carbon buildup on the spark arrestor. This typically happens because people are running their weed eater at real low speeds. Okay. It's unavoidable when you have a weed eater, to be honest with you. There's really nothing you can do about it. But I want to note that if you have a spark arrestor in your muffler, which you should take it out every couple of months and take a wire brush and brush it off. This makes it very hard on the carburetor to run if the weed eater will run at all. Okay? So keep this in mind, guys. It's a 5/8 head on this, and it's very simple to take out. It just screws out, and it's on your muffler. So keep that in mind. If you're having issues with your weed eater not having very much power or not very easy to start, this would be one of your first places to go look. Now guys, if you have issues with your weed eater flooding, there's two main causes to that. It can be a bad fuel filter that's doing it, or the tank vent. And I gotta be honest, more often than not, it's the tank vent. Now I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to show you guys this tank vent and where it's located. Alright guys, on your tank vents, now Stihl would not recommend this in any way, but I gotta be honest with you guys, the way the gasoline is anymore, this is a surefire method. It works perfectly. I've never had any issues. I've never had any weed eaters or chainsaws burn up by doing this, okay? But as I say, we're just addressing the weed eater at the present moment. The first thing you want to do is reach down in here and take your screwdriver and pop this little cap out. It's not hard. It should just pop right out. Now naturally guys, this seal is no good. Alright, so you can get a new seal if you'd like. They're not very expensive. To tell you the truth, an O-ring works just fine. You will no longer need this at the present moment, so we're just going to toss it aside. From here, you want to remove this piece. Kick it out of the way. Here is your duck bill. Okay, and the reason they call it a duck bill is, if you look at it carefully, you will see that it resembles the shape of a duck's bill. Now guys, I gotta admit that I've already done my alteration to this duck bill. But when you get yours, you'll only have one opening. And that opening is typically right here. What I found is if you're having an issue where your weed eater is flooding, you can take your simple pair of pliers and cut the very center of your duckbill. Right here. And as you can see, I cut into it. That typically will allow the air to pass out of the tank, and it will eliminate your flooding issues. And as I said, I haven't had any issues where, you know, there's been any potential problem of gas leakage or anything like that. What I like to do is just push the duckbill vac in. Once I've done this, and as you can see, it pushes in relatively fairly easy. I'm making it seem more difficult than what it is, as you can clearly see. Replace the piece on top. If you had a new seal, you can place your seal back into your cap or an O-ring. Okay, an O-ring works just fine. And then take the top, push it back in until it snaps. And voila, you're done. I hope this video helps everyone else out there that has run into any issues with their Stihl weed eaters. As I said, this video was just for educational purposes. In truth and honesty, changing the check valves, it's just not worth it, guys. I just thought that this video would be very informative to the people that were really curious as to why their weed eaters weren't running, okay, and to why they have to buy a carburetor about every 2 years. Until next time, YouTube.